So as I was saying, in preparation for the quiz, I think it's very important that you're able to look at some information and sketch your own triangle. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, as we prepare for this quiz. Does everyone remember how I asked you to label your triangles? If you don't understand the system, you will never be able to draw these triangles. Let's do, for the sake of it, let's do D. ABC is so common. How about we do DEF? By default, capital DEF with a symbol in the shape of a triangle in front of it means the three corners of the triangle are going to be labeled DEF. Now, by default, then I will label this as D. Label, you know what? I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to label this as D, and then this as E, and then this as F. I'm like, done. Okay? So again, this is a mistake, and I'll tell you why. And then it says angle E is 38 degrees. All right. Angle E is 38 degrees. What do I mean by a mistake? It's possible, for sure, F is larger than E, but clearly you see that the angle F is smaller than E. Another way you could think about it is, this is way too big. That's even, I'm going to say it's actually more than 90 degrees. And so maybe you can look ahead and be like, oh, the angles that they give me are small and still small. Maybe this is 38 degrees, and maybe that's still 48, because that's huge. Let's pretend you didn't even think about it that way. You just wrote it like that, right? And then you wrote 38 degrees, and then you wrote 48 degrees. Is it wrong to keep it that way? Not necessarily, as long as you stick to, stick to the calculations correctly. But if you don't like that, if it bothers you, by all means, change it. Don't spend too much time on it, though. Maybe you could do something like, something like that. Just switch it up a little bit. All I'm trying to say is, do what you need to. Okay? Draw it so that it's easy for you to understand. Draw it so that you feel comfortable. From there, little f is 15.8. In other words, the furthest side from capital F. Why is that important? Well, it's a skill, or it's a certain knowledge that mathematicians will take for granted. If you don't know how to do that, I need you to practice a little more, especially in number 9, so that you understand. Without lifting a finger, here's an angle, and then another angle, and then a side. We have AAS, or of course SAA, either way. That is one of the acronyms for sine law. So let's do it. 48 degrees matches with 15.8. 38 degrees matches with little e, which I don't have. And then angle D matches with little d, which I don't have. What's next? Go ahead. Yes, you can start by setting up the equation. There's one thing I would like you to build a habit of doing before you set up your formula. And that is, notice that you already have 2 angles. You can find the third one first, and you'll see that it actually does save you a lot of trouble. So here we go. Angle D, you can find it if you take the total 180 degrees, take away the 48 and take away the 38. In other words, these three angles, 1, 2, 3, add up to 180. I'm going to take away 48, take away 38, leaving me with the leftover. And that would be, let's see, 94 degrees. With this information, let's set it up. Again, by habit, I always do sine of the angle above the number, the side length, but I think that's going to be harder for us because that will place our variables in the denominator. So I'm actually going to set it up with 15.8 as the numerator. Little e as the numerator. And little d as the numerator. Let us begin by focusing on this ratio or this equation first. At this point in time, would you please open up or bring out your calculators and go through with me? Yes, go for it. For me, I just did all of this in one go. It looks like I get myself a 21.26099. I'm going to round that. 21.261. That is equal to E over sine 38, which I am going to write as 0.61566. So 616. Okay. And I'll do this last one. To get E all alone, I am going to get rid of a division of 0.616. I get rid of a division by doing the inverse, which is multiplying by that same number. Multiplying both sides by 0.616 is 13 rounded 0.0967. So 0.97. Here is 13.097. Picture is not to scale. Would you try doing that same thing and calculate D for me? So what you might want to do is take this ratio and put it next to this ratio and use these two fractions to calculate D. I'm not going to show you the information or show you the work because I think you can do it yourself. But if you did it correctly, what you should get is approximately 21.20. And something like that, I really don't think it should take you more than a minute at this point in time. So finish it off, and I will wait for you. I see from the work that everyone is doing that I think people can benefit from me actually showing the work. So in this particular case, I am putting together 15.8 over sine 48. Since this fraction equals the second fraction, and the second fraction equals the third fraction, the first fraction and the third, you can argue, are also equal. So I do this. That's why I asked you to focus on the green rectangles. 15.8 divided by sine 48, I already know equals 21.261. And d over sine 94 is actually equal to 0.997 or something. How do I get d all alone? Well, there's a division of 0.997. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 0.997, and I get myself, I see I made a rounding, 21.197 as my answer. So not 21.20. So there was a slight discrepancy with that because of the rounding. That's how you do it. Please put a star next to this and just tell yourself, I have no problem telling you that this is quiz material, because it won't necessarily help you get a perfect score. You have to be able to do it by yourself, right? You still have to, even if you know this is coming, if I give you some random numbers, you still have to piece the information together. So for sure, I'm going to give you something like this for assignment. Okay? Please make sure you know how to do it. Moving on, spent a lot of time on this, which is fine since we're reviewing for the quiz anyways. The next piece I want to do is today the mid-chapter review. Going down, 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 down. Here's a reminder that you still have to know how to do SOHCAHTOA, and here's a reminder you still have to be able to do some more questions. Here we go. Shall we? As a reminder for SOHCAHTOA, what do I notice? Number one, right angles. They are right angles, so we can use SOHCAHTOA. Okay. Choose angle of interest. Label. So how about the capitals? Choose label of interest. Label opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Choose two sides of interest, and then using the angle and the two sides that you chose, identify correct ratio to use. Always. Here we go. Choose the angle of interest. Do you want to use this one, or do you want to use this one? And in case you forgot, you cannot choose the 90 angle, 90 degrees. Okay, so which one do you want to choose? I hope you chose the 63 because they gave it to you. Next, if 63 is your angle of choice, what is my opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse? You have a 33% chance, 1 in 3. That's not a bad probability. Which side is opposite? Which side is adjacent? And which side is hypotenuse? Narrow down your answer. Which of these three sides is hypotenuse, or the longest side? Opposite, or the furthest away from the 90 degree, is my hypotenuse. Good. And now we have a 50-50 chance. Yep.
Is y opposite?
Correct. And that means that x is adjacent. If you're working like Carter, he would have done adjacent first because he has it in his brain. I look for the square, I look for the angle. The side in between that is always my adjacent. I think he mentioned that his tutor taught that. So it's great, it works, right? Next, now that I labeled, so I chose my angle of interest, I labeled it, choose two sides of interest that I'm going to use. This particular question is a little bit funky because there's two unknowns. One of your sides is going to have to be unknown. Here we go. I'll give you this one. I'm going to use this angle, obviously. I want to use this side as well because I have information. What side do you want to target? How about we start with opposite? So the question is using hypotenuse and opposite. What ratio is it? It's going to be sine. So as a reminder, sine of an angle is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Sine of 63 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Oh, opposite over 9.6. So y is equal to, sorry, sine 63 rounded 0.891 is equal to y over 9.6. Therefore, y is equal to approximately 8.554. Done. Can you do that within a minute or so? If yes, great. If not, you have to get there. Because as I said, this is something that you were supposed to work on throughout your grade 10 years and build a lot of confidence in during that time. So if you are not confident on it, let's face reality, you do have a little bit more work to get to a level that, well, essentially is more confident, more faster, more efficient, and more accurate than grade 10s are. And that's not to discourage you, that's to try to pump you up and get there because I know that you can do it. Coloring in green. So here's my angle. And I'm still using hypotenuse because I have 9.6. But this time, I need to find adjacent. So hypotenuse and adjacent, what am I using? Cosine. Cosine of an angle is adjacent over hypotenuse. So cosine of 63 is equal to x over 9.6. Cosine of 63 is completely different. It is 0.45399, so 454. So 0.454 times 0.454 times 9.6 is 4.3584, so 358 rounded. If you want to keep this in your cheat sheet too, you can, right? But still, it's a matter of you being able to follow the instructions on your own without me prompting you in the future. Any questions on normal primary trig ratios? So primary as in SOHCAHTOA. No? Okay. You sure? Let it be known what we are doing here is exactly the same no matter what question you have, as long as it is dealing with a right angle triangle. So take a look. I'm not doing this, but I just want you to identify it. A Coast Guard boat is tracking 2 ships using radar. At noon, the ships are 5 kilometers apart. So that's this ship and this ship. And the angle between them is 90 degrees. The closest ship is 3.1 kilometers from the Coast Guard boat. How far is the other ship from the Coast Guard boat? So this is what I would do. And I'll demonstrate this. I guess I should demonstrate this because this one gets you to solve an angle. Knowing that this is 90 degrees, you could probably use Pythagorean theorem, but that's not my point. Take a look at what I'm going to do. I am going to approach this as a multi-step question. I will use this side and that side as two given sides to calculate this angle. If I have this angle, because if that's the angle of interest, that's going to be adjacent and hypotenuse. I will use that angle as, I don't know, opposite over adjacent, that's TOA, or opposite over hypotenuse, that's sine, and figure out what that third side is. Take a look. Step one, I will find theta. If theta is my angle of interest, 3.1 is going to be adjacent, 5 is going to be hypotenuse. Cosine of the angle is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So cosine of the angle is 3.1 to 5. Which, let's just get rid of the fraction. So cosine of the angle is equal to 0.62. From our practice, do you remember how to break apart the cosine with its angle or take away the function?
With the cosine -1, so yeah.
So when you break apart the cosine or you separate it from the angle, what you're doing is doing the reverse of what cosine should be doing. You're doing the inverse of it, of 0.62. And again, you can't solve this unless you have the calculator. And what you get is approximately 51.68. Let's be accurate here, round it, 684 degrees. So my theta, I will update the picture, is 51.684 degrees. Suddenly, take a look at this triangle. I purposely took away the 3.1. Doesn't this look like a 90-degree triangle you can solve with SOHCAHTOA? That's why I say this is a two-part. The first part is you get your angle. And the second part is you're going to use that with what? Opposite side with hypotenuse, that's going to be sine. And you can solve it. Okay? That's it. I don't want to run through everything with you. I want to give you an opportunity to try this on your own. As I said, there's definitely going to be a SOHCAHTOA question where you solve for side. There's definitely going to be a SOHCAHTOA question where you solve for angle. Let me write this down. Okay. So in other words, solving SOHCAHTOA questions really shouldn't take you too long. If it is still taking long, start there, practice hard. Sine law question, that I understand if it takes a little longer, but we've been doing it for quite a while, especially if you've been working on it yesterday and you've been responsible, then it should be okay. The word question is where you should try to save all your time. Maybe I'll increase the quiz time to 25 minutes so you'll have a minimum of 15 minutes just for a single word question. Please use the examples I gave you today, the examples I gave you on Wednesday, all of that, and get ready for Monday. Any questions? Okay.